Evelina Dovsten said, "Use my paragraph method for this presentation as I did for the novel Århundradets kärlekskrig." I said, "Okay." The architect Johanni Palasma said, "Every drawing is a testimony." I said, "Every sampling is a testimony." I said, "I believe that there are certain things when it comes to making that we cannot describe, not only really talking about crafts, it's everywhere in our everyday lives, skills that our body does that we hardly reflect on. This project is about describing tacit knowledge through my craft making, in theory and in the material glass." This has come to result in a self-portrait in glass and transcriptions from sound recordings of me dictating while blowing glass. The philosopher Immanuel Kant said, "The hand is the window onto the mind." I heard, "The object is the window onto the mind." And I said, "The object stores knowledge. Knowledge from its maker is kept, preserved. Someone with similar knowledge or insight in the craft of making can read this out of this item by its visual appearance. Glass is a material that is like water, non-crystalline, and it's frozen in a state which the maker leaves it to be. The shape tells us about the making, the body who made it, how it was made and the time it was made in." Johanni Palasma said, "By viewing made things, objects, architecture, we get an insight into the maker's mind and fantasies. Our ideas are first picture in our inner thoughts, and even if it turns out a bit different, in reality it bears fragments from its maker's mental world." Hand surgeon Göran Lundborg said, "An anatomic explanation can be found in our brains. In our brains, the same area is activated when we read the craft of an object as if we would be making it ourselves. Another example could be if you see a picture of somebody running, you can feel the movement in your own body by just observing. This mirroring neurons is an important function when we learn new gestures, not only in crafts, it adapts to all sorts of movement." I said, "How can I describe tacit knowledge through my craft?" Philosopher Jonna Bornemark said, "To explore this, you have to use intellectus." I said, "Maybe I have to create a systematic method. I have to have control." Museologist Peter van Mensch said, "We have this problem of finding order. Because we have as human beings difficulties in accepting chaos, we need order. It gives us a sense of security and certainty. Everything should have its place in a system. It may be a God-given system or a more rational, scientific system, but we love to make systems." I said, "I seem to be very much a human." Johanna Bornemark said, "Stop, you don't listen. If you would like to make new discoveries in your work, you need to let this go. Forget the control for a while. To find something new, you have to enter the unknown. This is intellect. The opposite is called ratio and is the systematic structure made from positivistic facts. He exemplifies with elderly care and how a ratio is set up to structure the needs for the elderly, which can be useful, but if this is in too much control, the staff impairs them from making their professional assessment, which means using intellectus. Think in a subjective way, which ratio never can do alone. Only using ratio, you become a robot. Maybe effective according to what can be put into figures, but still a robot." I said, "So to not become a robot, I need to push myself out to that border of the unknown." Johanna Bornemark said, "It's a good thing to not know, then you know that there is something to know. You have found the starting point, a proof of tacit knowledge existed." Johanni Palasma said, "This is what art is for, to lead us to this threshold." I said, "If my art has the aim of leading someone else there, I first have to go there myself." Michel Polanyi said, "We can know more than we can tell." I heard, "We can make more than we can tell." Writer Helena Granström said, when I started to write, I realized I was a gold mine. I experienced that I had knowledge I wasn't aware of, knowledge knowledge that was awakened in the act of making, in this case, writing. I said, I would like to describe tacit knowledge as something that you rather demonstrate than tell. Often when people hear that I am a glassmaker, I get the question if I can describe how to make a wine glass. An impossible question to answer. This has to be seen or to fully understand. It's my view that you actually need to be learned and made. Michel Polanyi said, I don't want to brag, but I actually came up with the term tacit knowledge, and one example of this is the ability to recognize someone's face. This is done without us being able to describe or distinguish exact features. He proposed that this is found everywhere and central in all knowledge regarding our world. Composer Niels Fromm told me about his way of making and said, I play all instruments myself. I use music samplings, all made by me, and put them together. I said, that way only your own body is recorded, and no one has been interfering, so what we hear is a recording of your body alone, and in that way your bodily knowledge alone. Niels Fromm said, yes, so what are you going to do? I said, I will make glass samplings and only register my making in the glass. So what should I make? What shape? That is important. I decide to make maybe a system for how the shapes are chosen. Philosopher and craftsman David Pye said, wait, don't play it safe. Make shapes that is difficult and in which you need to take a risk. Bear in mind that the risk-taking is the extension of self and the individual. Now we are talking about a self-portrait. I said, so the making must be intuitive, using intellectus. One shape will lead to another one in dialogue with the making in the glass. From now on, I will work more intuitive in the glass view, one form leading to another form. This is also talking about a maker's many choices and how a form mutates all the time in dialogue with its maker. Like a writer is in dialogue with the text, I'm in dialogue with my material while making. Different states of mind, sometimes choices of equipment directed, some choices, but they are still mine in relation to them. I see my craft, my choices, my shapes as mutations of my master's craft, and this, I believe, is to be shown in the final pieces. In a way, the information will be all there in the glass, made by me, but I want to try to reach out more and make it comprehensible, amplify the personal experience. I want to document the time and the act of making, what is going on in my body while making, what happens in the room, with the glass and with my experience. But how do I do this? After the first tryout of writing down my thoughts post-making, I said, so I tried to remember what had been going on in my head while making. The only thing I got is 3 sentences. For example, stone in the glass, tired, hungry, had to open it 2 times, a bit crooked, and the rest is forgotten. Colleague Christine Larsen said, I just want to clarify that while blowing glass, you can't hold up. You have to finish what you have started due to the sensibility of temperature change. Every gesture needs to be done in the right order and within a certain time frame to reach the result in mind. The production process is fast if you compare it with, for example, a ceramic process. I think you also should mention that you do everything without molds. I said, I will start to record myself and speak out what comes to mind while blowing glass. Then we will see what happens. Later I said, I first thought the documenting was a failure, but after transcribing the sound recordings, I found a distance, an observation point, and I was able to see new aspects of the making process. The dialogue with myself and the dialogue with the glass became so central, a time document. Ludwig Wittgenstein was just passing by and said, oh yes, dialogue is crucial. I said, this made me see the work to not only consist of glass, the transcription was a result as well. Transcribing is also a making process. I want to write exactly what I've said, but I realized that even if you didn't think there would be choices to consider, there are a lot. how to deal with silence, where to use comma or dot, so on. Probably it's possible to read out my mode out of how the transcriptions are made. Niels Fromm said, "So now you have a lot of glass samplings and transcription samplings. What are you going to do with this huge material?" I said, "I will assemble the glass samplings like your music into collages, which will show not only the best of me in my making, but also the bad days and failures. A similar process is going on to the transcription samplings, which I want to work with by highlighting parts of text, underlining words or pieces of text. And so another dialogue is created, but here it's between me and the old thoughts of mine. A selection of samplings and transcription samplings is chosen for the final installation." Later, Andreas Nobel is going to ask me, "Did you find a way to describe tacit knowledge?" I answered, "I believe all glass elements, samplings, objects bears my knowledge and can be read out of them. All the choices that is there and is made during every moment of making is an evidence. They are themselves the proof of my knowledge. But a fair picture of my knowledge they can only give when they are assembled in collages, where not only the more successful results are shown, but also the failures and mistakes. But this is my self-portrait. Someone else may have portrayed me in another way. I think the greatest finding I made during this work has been the dialogues discovered in transcription samplings. Dialogues between me material, me and philosopher, reference and artist, and so on." Helena Granström comments, "If anybody ever actually managed to construct a theory that can fully describe the universe," I said, "Sorry, Helena Granström, for interrupting, but maybe we can say tacit knowledge here instead." Granström continues, let's start over. "If anybody actually managed to construct a theory that can fully describe tacit knowledge, it's not the same as really understanding it. Just because I would turn it into a graph structure, how does it make a difference? Another example is to be found in physics, where the researcher might end up with a formula. This can only be a representation and a sort of explanation. To fully understand, you need to do yourself." Jonna Bornemark said, "Stop, I'm standing in front of your work. Where's intellectus? It looks like a ratio." I said, "Yes, I think it's good for the formation to have a graphic aesthetic, which will trick the ratio-loving audience to get close, tricked into looking at the subjective and step into intellectus for a while. I have also chosen a strict aesthetic in my work, which I think borrows the power of scientific aesthetics, the controlled, sorted, and above all convincing, but here used to illustrate the subjective. And to open up for subjective perspective, because I hope the artistic research is here to question other research fields' static objectivity." Jonna Bornemark said, "Yes, positivistic science would gain from looking into more intellectus-based research." And I said, "I think art and making is important for our society and can contribute in the way that it can question the ratio norm, by not only aiming for a measurable result. But now, let's continue. Follow me and I will take you to the installation. Welcome."